At the end of January, Jack from JackScat made a video in which he encourages everyone to open the discussion about the stigma of mental illness. He wanted creators to embrace the invitation and the challenge to create content which would proliferate this discussion. Click on my calendar to go to Jack's video and look in the description for my diaphragm, where the comments are, for charity links, for resources about mental illness, and for other YouTubers I found that have made creations about this topic. Here's my content contribution to the discussion of the stigma of mental illness and mental illness itself. I don't speak exactly from experience with mental illness, but I have had short-term anxiety as a kid with testing, with public speaking, with anything where nervousness performing was built up inside of me. My brother also grew up with Asperger's syndrome, so he has some experience with mental illness as well, some ailment. Seeing him triumph from it and grow from it has been very, very inspiring and very insightful into how mental illness affects people. He and I have always had trouble with contrasting silence in the present moment and being able to shut down our brains, our area upstairs, and all the noise that it creates. One of the things I think about with mental illness and mental health is our ability to deal with the noise that we have inside our heads. The voices, the criticisms, kind of your inner tormentor. Our ability to be okay with silence and solitude. I'm going to link a video below and you can check that out. It's called How to Be Alone. It really helped me with learning how to just be okay with being alone and being okay with silence. Being okay with solitude, being able to choose happiness and find inner peace even when you are on your own journey. The integrity to stand alone is extremely difficult, but it's something that I don't think all of us can conquer. I know that the seed is there for everyone, but some people just need guidance and need help. It's because it's not an easy task. But even how quiet it is in here right now, probably why I'm whispering very quietly. So let me explain a little bit. When I public speak or I perform or I took a test, there is always that anxiety in me, worried about failing, worried about being a failure and not doing as well as I expect myself to do. So when that happens now, because I'm more aware of it, I try to step outside of that anxiety and recognize it for what it is, take deep breaths, and become really, really present and not worried. Experience in public speaking has enabled me to speak the same way to a camera, one person, a group of people, or an entire crowd of people. There's always that expectation that's built up, and the number of people and that fear is intensified with a larger group of people. Breathing, being in the present moment, and just stepping outside of that fear, I think, is the key to getting rid of that short-term anxiety. Not completely, but lessening it. That doesn't mean it's easy to not dwell and cope and intensify on that feeling, on that anxiety, on that fear. It's not easy. The people that appear the weakest are normally the strongest when it comes to being vulnerable because they're open and honest. And this is different for everyone because our brains are very, very complicated instruments. Here's another cleaner example for you. When I hold up a bottle of water like this, now let's pretend that the weight of the water is the anxiety that I experience, the short-term anxiety. Over time, this can increase. It's not anxious right now, it's easy to lift this, but my arm's ability to handle it, which could be my brain or my heart or wherever you want it to use, over time, this can lead to distress. This can stress me out. If I intensify on it, if I focus too much on it and ignore everything else, or if I completely sweep it under the rug and don't address it and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is here, what can I do to respond well to this? I may not have had extreme mental illness, I may have only had short-term anxiety, but I can understand that somebody with a mental illness, without that awareness of the situation and their condition, could take this over time and it could lead them to a panic attack. If they focus intensely on this for a long period of time, they can immediately reach a panic attack depending on how much they do focus, or over time it can build up to one. The stigma that surrounds mental illness, I think, comes from our inability to address the noise that's happening in our brain and come to terms with it and understand it and then respond healthily to it. We're afraid, so we push it aside, or we completely attach to it and we try to stay in control and we intensify, and that tension does not help. It's still there. It's there. It's a part of you. It's your brain. Health disabilities are an illness, not a weakness, just as our thoughts run rampant without awareness, without control, without responding well, can lead us to distress. Thinking thinking, if you think about it, can become a disease. You have either spectrum here. It's that inverted U-curve shape again. Down here you have no thinking, no control. Over here you have completely thinking too much and stressing yourself out. There has to be a middle ground here. Mental illness is an issue, not an identity, just as our thoughts that we have and the noise that our brains create does not define who we are. Our brain is only a tool for understanding the world around us. You are not your brain. There is a part of you beyond your brain that's able to recognize thoughts as they come in and recognize things as they're happening. It's a part of your brain that understands that this noise that's happening can be addressed and calmed and lessened by being present, by living in the moment and not living, as Zay Frank loves to say, upstairs. I go upstairs up here. There's a knower behind the thinker, and by exercising your awareness and exercising how to control it, you can become more aware of how your brain processes thoughts and how you respond to things. Awareness is kind of like our sail. With our awareness, we're able to deter certain things and we're able to respond to certain things based off of our circumstances, respond to our thoughts. Blaise Pascal says the heart has its reasons that the mind knows nothing of. We can't let our brains master us, right? We have to master our brains. The brain's a great servant, but a terrible master. Instead, with listening to our hearts and listening and using our awareness, we can actually combat these irrational fears. We can combat this unawareness and this reacting to everything. Instead of being reactive to the brain and circumstances, we can be proactive. We can build the circumstances and change them and adapt. Jack says our heart and our brain are both organs and we should treat them the same. Just as you listen to your heart and you listen to your purpose and your meaning and what you value, you have to listen to your brain and the noise that it creates. You have to address it and use your awareness to understand it and to lessen it and calm it. Because if you react to everything in life, you're always going to be going down that road of anxiety, I think. Now this is different for everyone. All brains are different. This is not the same for every single human being. There are consistent truths here, but brains are immensely complex. I am not my thoughts. I am not my short-term anxiety. You are not your depression. You are not your brain. You are much more than that, and we should definitely treat our hearts and our brains with the same mentality. We should really all work together to create spaces of vulnerability where things can be openly and honestly discussed. Being vulnerable is a very, very intense challenge, being curious and being vulnerable. We need a place where these immense, scary, and complex ideas can be openly discussed without reactive responses to them. It's a very, very hard topic to discuss because it applies to so much, but it's so complex. And that support system that you build for yourself, your friends, your family, people that are qualified to treat mental illness, though that support system that you create can help you learn to respond well if you have mental illnesses, or even respond to regular anxieties that you have. I've had anxieties in the past, and I've talked to people about it, and that's where I've got the understanding from. From talking, from discussing, from learning, from asking questions, from engaging, being a part of a community, or being a part of the person sitting next to you. Talk to someone. And those are my thoughts. I have faith that you gain some value and some insight and some awareness about your brain and the ideas that are surrounding this stigma of mental illness. Thanks to Jack from Jack's Gap and Paul and Marie and the other YouTubers that I've seen discussing this topic of mental illness. It really opens the gates to understanding and learning and just building a communal appreciation for how complicated these issues are. And awareness is, I think, the first step. The internet is the best place to start talking about it, because that's really where the seeds kind of grow. That sounds kind of weird. Not that it's important than anything else, but it should be addressed. It should be talked about. Keep creating an awesome self. Don't forget to be awesome. Don't forget to be kind to greyhounds. She's hungry. And don't forget to realize that your mind is a tool and you can put it to use. But you have to have that awareness, I think, of your mind and how it can master you. You can master your mind with awareness, and you can learn to respond healthily to circumstances and challenges. Those are my thoughts. I'm all set. I love big ideas. This is great. See ya. I'm pretty tired, but I'm awake. Okay, let's just do 3 minutes. Couldn't hurt. So I wanted to share my thoughts on Valentine's Day and how important it is. Just really, really quick, just kind of think about Valentine's Day. I've been doing a lot of reading about presents, and one of the videos I made last year that I actually didn't upload, I made it for somebody else, was a video on how you describe love in a sentence, how do you describe love in a word. But you are the master of your mind. You are a tool. No. No, that didn't sound right!